Hello, hello. I hope you can hear me. I'm using this earpiece as I'm sitting here at this table I'm on is wobbly. I'm sitting here at restaurant and they're playing a soccer match, football match on the radio. So there's a lot of noise happening back there. So anyway, I put this earpiece in. I hope that you can hear me. I am doing this video in response to comments. A lot of times there's a lot of comments, and sometimes it's just a lot to keep writing back and forth on comments, and it's just easier to respond directly. So I decided that I'm going to start doing videos in response to some of the comments that people have. So this one is actually in response to a video from a while ago, a couple of weeks ago. Oh, thanks. Bobby Wright says, I love your hair. Yeah, it's coming out soon, but thank you. I'm just getting over being sick, actually. The last video I did that was Year of Return is over, now what? I immediately was sick after that. I was actually working sick throughout Year of Return activities in the month of December before Christmas. And when everything ended and then we were doing meetings and all that kind of stuff, eventually I ended up just my body conked out and I couldn't take it anymore. So anyway, I've been sick and now I am back to being almost 100%. And so I'm doing this video. I'm just going to keep looking here because I want to make sure that I read the comment properly so I don't misquote. So this particular comment was on the last video, and it was someone named Nakmizi. I hope I said the name right. Basically, it was the last video I did. The last video I just posted in the taxi, the Uber, with the driver who was saying he loved America. And Nakmizi's comment said, if you've never lived the life of a Black American, what makes you so sure about what you're saying? He went on to say that I would love to have a conversation with you to offer another perspective. America has its challenges just like anywhere for Black people. The narrative seems that Black America is a hellhole and not true. That's what he said. So it wasn't my intention for the narrative to be that America is a hellhole, because I know America is not a hellhole, or it wouldn't be as prosperous a nation as it has been. I will say that it does have a lot of challenges that a lot of people living in African countries are not aware of, need to be made aware of before they have dreams of going there. So, and it happens on both sides. So from the African perspective of somebody who wants to go to America, a lot of Africans are getting their information from movies, from TV shows, from magazines, from the internet, from commercials, from athletes who are all selling the positive image of the country. And one thing I can say is the US is very good at branding itself as being the greatest nation in the world. And they teach you that from a young age. If I'm wrong, and I have my American viewers here, tell me that I'm wrong. But they teach you that from a young age. From the moment that they teach you to pledge allegiance to the flag, you're taught already at a young age that your country is better than everyone else's country. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being patriotic to your country, because everybody should have a sense of pride and a sense of patriotism to their country that they live in. That's how you make your country become a prosperous nation. But what I am saying is that in the US, there is a lot of one-sidedness in how things are taught. And so a lot of times people see one thing. There's a fly that keeps coming to my drink, and I want to... a lot of times people see one side, and for those of us who grew up in Canada, because I grew up in Canada, even though I was born in Ghana, I was raised in Canada, and I did live in the US for a period of time. I lived in Detroit, And so I do have a perspective of having experienced things in Ghana, in Canada, and in the United States. And as a black person, what I can tell you is, as a black person in Ghana, in an black African country, racism isn't something that's ever on my mind. I don't ever have to think about being a black person. I don't ever have to think about that I'm being discriminated against because of my race when I'm in Ghana. But when I'm in Canada and when I'm in the United States, yes, those are things that come to mind because racism is deeply rooted in the fabric of society. And what I can say is that as black people living in America or living in Canada, where you're living in a society where there's a predominantly white person in whether it's in control that you see day to day or whether it's institutional control, the reality is there is some element of having to behave in a certain way so that you make sure that you pass through life in certain situations. If it wasn't for the fact that there's a negative stereotype towards black people, you wouldn't find yourselves having people in law enforcement who exhibit this negative attitude towards black people. So when you find yourself in situations where black people are being treated differently than a white person would be in the same type of scenario, that's an example of what black people deal with when they live in non-African countries, non-black countries at a higher, much, much higher rate. So what I was trying to articulate to that man in the taxi is the fact that he doesn't have to think about race. I mean, I was in a short ride. Everything was quite emotional with the conversation and everything. And I knew my ride was coming up to an end. So I couldn't keep going in depth and for a long period of time. I don't want to keep him talking about it. And then he has another ride he has to get, right, on the way the Uber system is. So I know that, my brother has dealt with being treated differently as a black man when he was driving a nice vehicle in a place that there's white people. I know that I have also had experience. My sister actually once told me that she had an experience where they thought she was a guy. She had a baseball cap on, and the way they treated her once she took it off and they saw she was a woman, a black woman. Mind you, black women are also treated differently too a lot of the time. I'm not saying always, but there tends to be more hostility towards black men than black women when it comes to law enforcement. Now, I'm not saying that there's not hostility. I'm saying that there's a tendency. So back to Nakmizi saying that if you've never lived as a black American, what makes you so sure about what you're saying? Being black and having lived in America and having traveled through America many, many times throughout my life, I think that I have an understanding of what the experiences are. Somebody's telling me, don't waste your energy. You're talented. Focus on your future. These are conversations that still need to be had, and I wanted to just address them. And the other one that Nakmizi, I'll go back to another comment from Nakmizi, but let me continue with this. So basically, a person in Africa is being sold an image through media about the greatness of America. And a lot of times people arrive, not just from African countries, but I've heard this from people coming from other countries, like from Pakistan, from India, from different places, who arrive expecting the land of milk and honey. And then they find out it's not as easy as they thought it was going to be. They thought they were going to arrive and it was going to be a simple thing. You get there, you make lots of money, and you live the American dream. But the reality is you still have to bust your ass. You still have to work hard. And when you're a minority from another country, and if English isn't your first language, and if you have an accent, all those kinds of things come into play, making things more challenging. Not saying it's impossible, but it's more challenging for sure. And there's a lot of people who, when they come, they realize, oh man, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And there's a lot of people who I've spoken to who immigrate there and decide that they wish they didn't because they didn't realize it was going to be the way it was, especially for people who maybe had these top positions in their own countries. And now they're somewhere that they can't even work in a position of high level. That's why you find that there's people with master's degrees and PhDs driving taxis in New York City because their skills are not being valued. But if they went back to where they originally immigrated from, they would be, in those types of positions related to what their skill set was. But once you've made the move, you're like, now you're there. You got to make the hustle and you got to make it work. You got to do the grind and you got to do what you can to make the dreams work. So, and then on the other perspective, a person living in America who has never left America, because they visit only their 50 states within the US and haven't left, doesn't ever get to see the perspective of what it's like to be somewhere else in the world, to have an understanding of what it's like elsewhere in the world. I know for me, growing up in Canada, as a black person, as an African person, there were times that people had this stereotype that Africans are living in trees and everybody's poor and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, I was like, I have an uncle who is like really well off, and people don't realize that there's wealthy people in the continent of Africa. There's people living, some of them better lifestyles than people living in North America. So I think that the narrative needs to change. People need to realize that everywhere in the world there's poverty, everywhere in the world there's wealth, everywhere you've got middle class, you've got a mixture of people in different areas. And so, my whole thing in the continent of Africa is about trying to change what people think. There was one person who I was commenting back and forth with who seems to think every police officer in the whole continent of Africa shoots people if they don't get bribes, which is not true. There's 54 countries on the continent. Yes, there's war in some places. Yes, there is conflict in some places, but the majority of places on the continent are not like that. The majority of places do not have conflict going on. The majority of places don't have people running around in war. The majority of the countries are not going through all the stuff that media will make you think. Media will blanket an entire continent of 54 countries based on what's happening in 5 or 6 countries. Then everybody's like, whoa, the whole continent, this is what's happening. When it's like, from country to country, things are different. So, people need to start taking the time to research and taking the time to not allow one media view to skew what you think, because there's a lot of propaganda out there that's telling you one side of the story, and we need to know that there's balance in every story. Okay, so then the next comment was from Nagmizi also. He had said that about Year of Return, he was saying that Year of Return was a straight tourist scam, and that price gouging galore, and that he didn't go in 2019 because it was a shameless pain pimping campaign, and they should have had a year of reconciliation before a year of return. That's what he said. But he said he's also still coming to Ghana in February. And then he said that you invited Conan and Brian. As far as I know, Conan and Brian came on his own with his friend Sam Richardson. His friend Sam Richardson, who's a comedian, actor, and also is half Ghanaian, is the one who brought him to Ghana. They happened to come when it was Year of Return. Everybody, all these celebrities who came to Ghana were not necessarily... They weren't invited. A lot of them came on their own. So if someone comes on their own to come and see their country, it didn't mean that the government invited them to come. So anyway, back to what he was saying about it, saying that it's a straight tourist scam. I don't understand when I hear people say that Year of Return is a tourist scam. How is it a scam? Tell me. How is a black African country having black people come, spend their money in a black country supporting black people? How is that a scam? But yet if a black person goes to a trip to Italy or goes to Paris or goes to work, is that a scam? Is that a scam? You're supporting the French economy, you're supporting the Italian economy, but if people come and use their tourist dollars to support an African country, it's suddenly a scam? I don't understand. Please help me to understand that. As far as price gouging, that is something that an individual business makes the decision to do. If somebody's decided they want to raise their prices, which happens in the tourism industry a lot during peak season, like if I decide when I'm in Canada and it's winter time and I decide I want to go somewhere when it's winter because I want to escape, the prices are going to be super high because it's peak season. Is that price gouging? Probably, yeah, because they're taking advantage of the fact that there's a lot of Canadians leaving the winter to go somewhere warm, so the prices are high. I think it's part of the, supply and demand kind of thing. I'm not saying it's right, because Uber was killing us. Uber was killing us during the month of December with their surge increased fares because of high demand. There were times when a location I would be going would normally be 8 Ghana cities, and it was coming up as 65 Ghana cities for Uber because of these increased fares, because of increased demand, which I think is just ridiculous. And Uber does this everywhere in the world, not just in Ghana during year of return. Uber does this everywhere. I remember when I was living in Toronto and it was the All-Star weekend and NBA All-Star weekend, and going from downtown Toronto to where I was living in North York would normally be about $20, but during NBA All-Star weekend, Uber surge pricing made it almost $300 to get home. Like, what's up with that? So anyway, I don't see Year of Return as being a tourist scam. I see it as it was an opportunity for people to come and see the country, for people to come and experience the history, to learn the culture, to meet people, and to come somewhere that they never would have thought of before. Because the reality is a lot of people living in America never think of going to Africa for a holiday unless it's like Cape Town, South Africa, or Morocco, or Egypt to see the pyramids. Most people don't say they're going to make a trip to Africa. So the fact that it's changed the mindset for people to come, I think it was fantastic, number one. Number two, Ghana does recognize that it had 75% of the slave forts on the west coast of Africa. And in having that, they also, were sorry for the part that the country had played in having so many forts that were there that changed hands many times between the British, the Dutch, the Portuguese. And unfortunately, there were some West Africans who participated in helping some of the people who were selling off slaves and capturing. Unfortunately, that did happen. On the other side, there were also a lot of people who fought. I hear a lot of people say that Year of Return was a scam also because they say that, you sold us, but now you want us to come back. But the reality is most people weren't selling off their brothers and sisters. I'm not saying there weren't any who didn't participate, just like there were some Black people in America who participated in slavery as well. Unfortunately, the story of the people who fought doesn't often get told. Earlier in the Year of Return, in I believe it was May or June, there was a Northern Region chief who came and spoke at an event, and he had told the story about how there were people in the Northern Region of Ghana who fought against the people who were capturing. There's a wall in the Northern Region called the Golu Wall. I hope I pronounced that correctly, and it really should be a bigger tourist attraction, but it's a wall that people built during that time to protect themselves from being captured. And that wall is still there, and for anybody who comes to Ghana and decides to travel to the north, you should go and look at the Golu Wall to go and see this place that they built as a way to protect themselves from being captured, and they fought. So there are stories of people who fought. It just doesn't really get told. It's not the popular narrative to be told, but it happened. There were people who fought. So personally, I think that any initiative that was done that helped encourage people of African descent to come to the continent of Africa, whether it was to Ghana or to another country, I think it's great because people are starting to open their eyes and starting to come and see these places they never would have gone to before. Yeah, there was another person on the video named Jermaine Black who also said that he felt like it was just a money grab from Black Americans. And as I've said, I don't feel that it was a money grab or that it was a scam. I believe that it was something that was an opportunity to connect. There's a lot of people who actually have come and made decisions that they want to invest in the country because they see the opportunities to invest their money and to possibly start business, to collaborate with people, because this is like new ground to get involved in. So like what America would have been like 200-300 years ago, or like when you hear dynasties of people like the Rockefellers or whatever. I'm just using that as an example because it came on the top of my head. took hundreds of years to build some of these dynasties. I mean, some of them did some illegal stuff, some of those people back then, but I'm not encouraging you to do illegal stuff. I'm just saying that this is a time when things are in the grassroots level, and if you have the patience and if you have legacy thinking, then it's something that you could get yourself involved in and invest for the future. I know I'm supposed to be just talking about comments, but I'm kind of going into a different direction, which I think is important. So, like, for example, I met someone this year who came to Ghana, an American, and he's decided that he wants to be into agriculture. So he's looking at different types of agriculture to get involved in. So, okay. Black Rick 100 says, Africa does it, it's a scam. White man does it, what a wonderful original idea. Wish I had thought of it all the time. We gleefully go along. Oh, wait. Yeah, white man repeat over and over. Black folks are scammed by Westerners all the time. We gleefully go along. That's Jose Long who said that one. Thank you for your comments. Frank Kyrene, did I say that right? Frank Kyrene says Black Americans' money can build Ghana. Only GH have a lot of resources like gold and petrol. I think that we all have the power to build wherever we choose to, whether it's Ghana, whether it's Jamaica, whether it's Trinidad, Antigua, whether it's somewhere that you feel you want to invest, and there's possibilities for growth and for potential. I think that Africa is a great place to do it. We're seeing people like Akon who are taking advantage of it. It's fertile ground, but it's not easy. I'll tell you that it's not easy, because doing anything that's from the ground level is never going to be easy. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you watching my videos, and I will continue doing videos responding to comments, because I think it's important in engaging in the conversation and the dialogue. So thanks a lot for watching, and put some comments down there, and I'll do my best to respond. All right? Thanks for watching. Oh, somebody said China dropped 300K plus people on the continent. I saw that headline going through my social media, but I didn't click on it to read it. So I'll have to go and look and see what that's about. Oh, on a lighter note, how's the weather? Beautiful. It's beautiful. But I'm kind of sitting, I'm not really sitting in a nice place. I'm like at a restaurant. But it is nice. It's hot. It's hot. And it's so hot that the air conditioning wasn't working in the restaurant, so I decided to sit outside. And the heat is just, it's like a humid heat. Yes. Meanwhile, I was watching some of my friends on Instagram shoveling snow. I'm glad I'm not shoveling snow. I'm having some orange juice, fresh squeezed orange juice, sitting on a patio and enjoying some sunshine. So I am going to wrap up now. Thank you so much. Somebody said, how can one contact you? You can email info@ivyprosper.com. That's info@ivyprosper.com. You can send an email, and I will do my best to respond. All right? Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.